And we're back. So, now we are post nuptials. The wedding was beautiful. I will say though, I forgot to mention in the first part because I only have 10 minutes. There is a moment that they had a dinner before their nuptials. It was like maybe a Friday, and everyone spontaneously had to, say something. And so her mother, Caroline's mother, was not Caroline's mother, wasn't totally on board with this marriage or their relationship, just for the simple fact that he had already kind of played with her and went back and forth between him and her and Daryl Hannah. So there is an instance in that, I believe, in the video, which is on YouTube, or there's been tell-alls where the mother, didn't necessarily say anything rude, but also wasn't on board, and her tone was very much like, I don't need my daughter to minimize herself to fit into your lifestyle. Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing. So, which she did do. There's reports that she made his sister Caroline her maid of honor, as opposed to making her own sister that. And there was a bit of a rift, but it also was an indicator that he would go on and make all these decisions, even though she was headstrong. And I know they're making her the cool girl with the hair flip, constant hair flip, but there were moments that I guess she felt that she needed to do that, and we see that highlighted in this series to appease him. So what happens after, like, her mother speaks, like she goes into the house, I feel that's fictionalized. Again, everything you see when it comes to Ryan Murphy, I love him and his productions, but I think a lot of it is also based on what if that happened, but there's no real actual, like, true grain of truth to it, because there's nobody, accounting for it. Anyway, that's just a side note. So I believe she's like, and then that bothered her. After that speech, Carolyn would be upset at her mother for having made that speech. She tries to run away one last time. She loves running away in this series. And they go to the beach, which is right by where they're staying. And, of course, they have this passionate, intense scene in the beach right before they decide to take the plunge. So they take the plunge metaphorically and literally with the beach, and then they do it at the church, and they take the plunge to be married. I believe this is, I'm not entirely sure, I want to say there are 8 episodes. So now that they've married and there's the introduction of these private jets, we'll see how much more longer it'll last. But like I said, I've mentioned, I would rather, if they had gotten points of views from other people who actually knew them, who were part of their lives romantically. For heaven's sake, even people on the Kennedy camp have expressed, and they're not really getting dogged in this series. I think if anything, they've been very complimentary to the Kennedy clan, but they're very upset that they weren't consulted for this series. Maybe perhaps because it's 99.9% fictional. And also, kudos to Daryl Hannah, who has spoken out and said that her portrayal in the series is really fictional. How they portray her and the hints at her perhaps abusing drugs is not true, and that he wasn't that type of person. I don't know. We don't know. But again, people are, who lived it, who walked the walk, who knew these people, were like, no. I don't know what you're projecting on screen, but that's not how it went down. So now, and then also the way they end that episode, there's a moment of, there wasn't a father and daughter dance, because I think her biological father, she was estranged from him. So they just, introduced them as a couple and started dancing. But the way it ends, I just thought was unnecessary. Why all of a sudden are they floating on some like pedestal? Like how, again, how Cinderella of them to have done. But whatever. That's neither here nor there. I do recommend for people who are watching, because I feel like it sparked inquiry in me and curiosity in me, to go on YouTube, do your research. I feel like when you have the other side of the coin, you have a better balance of what you're actually watching. Ask Not is a book, and I think it's available on Amazon Audible, so you can get that account of what those women went through: Carolyn Bessette, Jacqueline, Marilyn Monroe. I believe also, like I said, the show The Nerve is on YouTube. That particular YouTuber, who was a former journalist and is a book author, and I believe she was approached by Ryan Murphy, but something happened with it. They didn't agree upon a good price, so that's probably why her knowledge on the subject was not a part of the show. But she has made reference to her Carolyn's former lover, Michael Bergen. That's his name. His not autobiography, but his tell-all book of his romance with Carolyn Bessette. And to the point where she had, the way she is detailed and painted in that book, yeah, she was, much more, rough around the edges. Definitely way before she started to look a certain, or again, trying to fit into his world by really bleaching her hair and going pin straight and trying to fit some profile that he wanted as a love interest or mate. But the way he paints it in his book, she was a bit of a jealous person, although she was stringing him along. And that, again, allegedly, I don't want to hear any, oh, that's not true. Allegedly, in the book, I believe he states that she may have been pregnant at the time that John F. Kennedy Jr. proposed. So there were a lot of twists and turns to their real love affair. Caroline and him, and John F. Kennedy Jr., they were both cheating on each other. The infamous fight in Battery Park wasn't because, why won't you marry me? Why won't you show me love? It was because it was rumored, again, allegedly, that he had been sleeping around with other women, and Carolyn found out. This was before the wedding. But anyway, I leave that to you in case you want to stream. I would say do that. I guess, like I said, this show has now become the new, and just like that, we're just all hate watching at this point. I'm doing my comparisons though, because if you go on YouTube, you really hear the real dirt of how these two behaved, their real relationship, how he really interacted with her and her family, and the unfortunate loss of her mother. I think the real victim here, aside, yes, that these people were young and they really should be living today, that they lost their lives needlessly for something so ridiculous as a private jet. And I feel like they still want to blame the press for it. I feel like the real victim is her mom, because she not only lost her daughter, but 2 daughters. She had 3 children, and her other sister, who's on the plane and also lost her life, was part of a twin. And it's just, it's heartbreaking to know as a parent that this is something that could have been totally avoidable. Again, anyway, let's see how that pans out in the next couple of weeks and how that story develops. And perhaps, I don't know if they'll mention their infidelities. I would be very interested to see that. But I hope they don't keep it in this, box of they could do no wrong. You know what I mean? Anyway, let me know what you thought about this review. Leave me a comment down below. Also, you can see me on YouTube. Click the link in bio. And until next time, y'all. Oh, and have you been watching DTF on HBO Max? Let me know.